Hey guys, Mickey Morris here. Welcome back to my channel, and today I wanted to do my first ever YouTube makeup tutorial. I do a lot of live videos on Facebook all the time with like step-by-step makeup application tips and all that good stuff. But I know I've never done one on here, and I know not everyone is friends with me on Facebook, so I wanted to do one on this channel. So this should be exciting. I kind of want to just do like a pretty basic, simple look. I don't want to get into anything super complicated since this is like the first one I'm doing. But if you guys enjoy this and you would like me to do another one with a more complex look, or maybe something that you've seen on my Instagram or whatever, definitely feel free to request it, put it in the comments below, or just go onto my Instagram, find a look that you like, and comment on it and ask me to do a tutorial. So I don't have any makeup on right now at all. This is like my natural bare face. I've already put on moisturizer and primer, so I'm not going to start with those in this video. The primer that I'm using currently right now is e.l.f.'s primer that has the salicylic acid in it because, as you can see, I am acne prone. So I really like it. It doesn't break me out. It smells pretty minty fresh and it's pretty lightweight, but I feel like it does a pretty good job of priming. So I won't show you guys that step, but I'm gonna go straight into concealing and foundation, and I hope you guys like it. So the thing you'll notice about me is a lot of my makeup isn't very expensive. I really don't do a lot of shopping at like Sephora or Ulta or any of those types of shops. I do purchase some things from different direct sales companies. If you guys have watched my channel, you saw that I did a review on Lip Sense lipstick, and I used to work for Mary Kay, so I still have some of their stuff left over. And I also used to work for Unique before I got into health and wellness and holistic healthcare, which is what I do now. But so I still buy some of their stuff. I do like their mascara, and then I've tried one of their lip stains as well, which I also did a review on. So so I like shopping from different direct sales companies. I have girlfriends in different companies that I support. But for the most part, a lot of this stuff is just from the drugstore, not super expensive. It's pretty affordable, which I know if you're like me, it's really nice. The thing that I will invest in is eyeshadows, because I feel like cheap eyeshadows just don't do your face justice. Like the pigment is always off. And it doesn't look right, so that's the one thing that I will spend money on. But as for like mascara or my concealer or setting powder or even bronzer, everything that I'm going to be using today, even like my eyeliner, is drugstore brand, so bear that in mind. So I used to just apply my foundation with my fingers and I also didn't used to use any concealer at all, but I've noticed that using a little bit of concealer underneath your foundation when you have dark spots really helps. I personally don't use concealer under my eyes because I feel like it looks too cakey on me anyways. That's probably only something I would do like if I was like going out to like a super fancy night out. So I'm just gonna use my little brush that I have here. It's just a liquid foundation brush. Again, this one is from Mary Kay from when I sold it. And then I have my trusty little completely almost used up cover stick. I believe it's from Maybelline. So what I do is I just kind of tap a little bit of concealer. It's pretty thick. And then I just kind of go over any acne marks that I have and I blend that in. Okay, so it's okay if it's a little bit lighter than your skin tone. You don't need something that matches like perfectly unless you're going to be using it on top of your foundation or by itself. but I almost never use it by itself. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my liquid foundation. So I use the Mary Kay Time Wise Matte Wear Liquid Foundation. I'm in the color beige too. So sometimes I'll put it on my hand and then dip my brush into it, but for today, just to save time and to not have to wash my hands a bunch, I'm just gonna squirt it straight on my brush and then kind of evenly distribute it by putting just little dots. That way I can blend it all in. Now with this foundation, I will go up under my eyes because I do want to definitely do some type of concealing under my eyes, but I don't want it to look cakey. And this foundation is super pigmented, but it's very, very light. So again, I'm just gonna go in and blend that out. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'm gonna put a tiny bit more on my brush so I can blend it into my jawline, and then I will use my fingers, my ring finger, to kind of smooth out and finish concealing any dark circles underneath my eyes. But you definitely want to make sure that it's all blended in to your jawline, because when you look down, you don't want to have like a distinct line there. So blend, blend, blend. Especially if your foundation doesn't match perfectly. And then always use your ring finger when you're applying anything up under your eyes. So I literally just like put a little bit on my hand just now, took my ring finger, and then I just pat it underneath. And you don't want too much because you don't want it to cake up. Also, you don't want to just do it in a circular motion, kind of do it in like a triangle under your eye so that it kind of connects that under eye part down towards your cheekbones, so that it looks more natural, as opposed to like, wow, she put concealer under her eyes. The reason why you want to use your ring finger is it's the most gentle finger. It's technically the weakest finger, and the skin under your eye is actually the most sensitive. So you want to be really, really careful with the skin under your eye, because if you're constantly wiping, 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 pulling, 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 being really, really harsh with it, you can damage the skin and cause wrinkles much, much easier. So see how I just concealed that and it doesn't look like I have like just like a circle of white under my eyes? And then I'll go in with my finger, and if I see any dark spots that I still need to conceal, I do a patting motion. I don't wipe. You don't want to wipe because then you're going to be smearing it all over and it's not going to have the full coverage. So just kind of dab it in where you need it, like that. And there we go. That is my foundation. So I'm going to let that dry for like 2 seconds, and then I'm going to set it with a powder. Okay, so I'm about to go in with powder. Depending on the type of look that I'm doing, sometimes I prime my eyes before I put the powder on, and I kind of bring the setting powder up onto the eye primer. But that's usually for like a super, super light look, if I don't really need the eyeshadow to be super pigmented. If I want the eyeshadow to be super, super pigmented, I won't use any setting powder over it. I will do my whole face with the setting powder, and then I'll do my eye primer, and then I'll immediately, before the eye primer dries, I'll use that wetness that's still kind of left over with the eye primer to use the pigments on top of that to kind of enhance that. But today I'm just gonna do my powder first, and then I'll go back in with my eye primer. So I don't really have a huge preference on setting powders right now, to be completely honest with you. I'm using, going back and forth between two right now because they're both almost gone, but I've tried both using the e.l.f. powder that's just like, what is it called? It's called Prime and Stay Finishing Powder. That's what the back looks like. I'm gonna turn it around, but don't judge me. I dropped it on the floor, so it's like all loose in there, but I do like e.l.f. a lot. And the second one that I'm using is from Wet n Wild. Obviously, I've been using it a lot, but this is like a contouring double palette. I don't use liquid contours because my skin is so acne prone, so I try to be as gentle as possible with my skin. So even though it looks like I put on a lot of foundation or concealer, it's all very light, like my skin still feels very airy. So I don't want to put liquid on top of that. So what I use for bronzer and for contouring is powder or pressed powder. So that's besides the point for right now. I'm gonna go in with this setting powder and then I will prime my eyes. Something that's important while you're putting on your powder is to make sure that your foundation has dried a little bit so that you're not smearing it around and causing streaks. What I do in these areas here where you guys saw that there was a lot of acne scarring, I pack the powder on like this and I pat it instead of like swirling it or just brushing it on, because I really want to make sure that that foundation and that concealer sticks in those trouble areas. Same thing with under the eyes, because I don't want it to look smeared or cakey under my eyes at all. But as for like my forehead, I'll usually swirl it around. I blend it into my jawline and then just dust it over my nose. Yes, Baba?
Can I show them my Barbie?
Okay, do it quickly.
This is my Barbie because her hands move and so does her elbows, and I did her hair, and her feet move as well, because you see that sometimes Barbies have moving elbows or moving hands. And there's something else, guys, I need to show you.
Okay, Bubba, I need to finish this video so you can talk to them later. Can you go out and close the door, please?
Yeah. Bye, guys. Make sure at the end of the video, don't forget to subscribe down below.
She's funny. Okay, so for this eye primer, I'm just using, again, something that I have left over from my Mary Kay days. I usually use the Urban Decay eye primer. That's like literally the only thing I'll go to Sephora for, because I do like that it gives you a really, really strong foundation and a really strong base. But for now, I'm using this. It still comes out white, but it dries clear, so you don't need that much. Just kind of, I dab it on with my pointer finger, and then I blend it out with my ring finger. People ask me all the time if eye primer is necessary, and the answer is 110% yes. Even if you don't use, a primer for your foundation, for 112% sure, make sure that you're using a primer for your eyeshadow. Otherwise, it's just not gonna look right. It's not gonna blend well. It's gonna crease. It's just not gonna be cute. So next, before I get into doing my eyes, I do my contour. Reason being, I want to make sure everything's blended in case I decide to do a little bit of a crazier wing or a color that I kind of want to blend over, which is why I also do I personally will like start doing my highlight before I start doing my eyeshadow. It's just a personal preference. So for contouring, the basic, it's not that hard. I know it looks hard like when they show you like a bunch of charts and stuff, but it's really not that hard. There's different ways that you can do it if you want to do it with liquid contouring, like, or a darker foundation for different face shapes and all that good stuff. But just for like regular powder, just like the basic areas that you're gonna want to hit are cheekbones, and then you want to define the jawline, especially if it's not super defined already. Just a tiny bit at the very bottom of your chin, and then you can carry it up around your forehead, and then you can do your nose if you want. So that's what I'm gonna do. I just have like an angled brush. This one is from e.l.f. I really, really like this brush a lot. And I'm just gonna get some of my bronzer on here and go to work. This color is really light. It's basically just a base color. This is something that I'll use if I like want something on my lids, but I don't want anyone to look at me and go, oh, she has makeup on. So what I kind of do now more recently is I'll take the eyeshadow under my eye too to kind of connect it. It's a different look, you don't have to do it. But what I do is I just take the fluffy brush and I just go underneath my lash line and it just kind of connects it, especially since I usually don't do any type of eyeliner. So it kind of makes the mascara pop a little bit more in my opinion. So that's what I do. And I do this with any color, like I'll do it with a darker color, like whatever my main color on top is, I usually bring it up underneath. When you have any fallout under your eyes, just use a brush to brush it away. Don't use your fingers. If you use your fingers, it's gonna smear it into your foundation that you've already done, and it's gonna leave streaks, especially if it's a darker color. Never use your fingers to get that off. Always use a brush and just kind of gently flick it out of the way. So now I'm gonna go in with this color in my crease. I'm gonna use the same brush because that's just me. Again, you can kind of bring that color up underneath a little bit. Especially if you have colored eyes, it really makes your eyes pop. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this brush, the one that I didn't use yet, and I'm going to use some of these super lighter colors underneath my brow bone to highlight. This one is my favorite, but it's almost out, so I try to save it as much as possible. So I usually start with like this, and then I top it off with this one because I'm almost out. So you just want to put that right up underneath the brow bone so that it kind of highlights. See how it highlights? But it's subtle. You don't want it to be, you don't want anything to not look blended. Everything that you put on needs to look blended so that it's not harsh. I cannot stand it when people do their makeup and everything's just like harsh lines, unless it's a cut crease. Even then, some face types I feel like don't look the best with cut creases. So I'm just putting that. You can also put highlight here in the corner, which I always do. I usually do that before I do any type of eyeliner, just in case the eyeliner has to go on top of the highlight just to kind of complete the look. But I always use this one for my highlight in my corner. Just put a little bit there, a little bit there, blend it out. And this just kind of brightens the eyes. Okay, so now I'm also gonna go in with this lighter one on top of the one that I already did to kind of brighten it. See how quickly that picked it up? It's so pigmented, it's crazy. So you really only need a tiny bit. And now, see how it comes down pretty far? I don't like that, and I don't think it looks good. So I'll go back in with the color that I initially chose for my crease, and I'll blend it up. You don't necessarily want to bring the color up too far up on your brow bone. And it's going to vary depending on how much space you have there, because everybody's eye shape is different. But that's about how far I bring it up, just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to do my brows. Obviously my brows are very full naturally, so I don't use anything liquid on them. I used to in the past, and it was just way too much because I have so much natural hair there. It just looked too matted. So what I use now is just a really small angled brush, and then I use a darker eyeshadow. So what I do is I dip it in the eyeshadow, and then I do this part first, and I just kind of draw a line here. And then I darken the rest of it. And then I go like this, and I fan it out to kind of blend that color in. And then I'll take my finger and just blend it underneath so that it looks blended. And see, like, this one's done and this one isn't done. There's a very subtle difference, but when you're doing especially like a darker look, it really kind of, you don't want your eyebrows to look too light. Also, if you're using a lot of like highlighting powder and that type of stuff in foundation, sometimes it can get on your eyebrows and make them look too light. So it's kind of nice to like kind of counteract anything that you've done like that and darken them up. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm not the best to give like tips on eyebrows just because mine are so dark that I don't really have a lot of experience in like majorly filling them in or anything. So I'm probably not the best to give advice on that. But if you have fuller eyebrows like me, my best tip for you is to make sure that you use this little tip here. Make sure that your brows don't go further in than there, that your arch is right through the middle of your eye, and that it ends at the end of your eye there. See? Because bushy eyebrows are life, but only if they're groomed correctly. So now I'm gonna do just a little bit of eyeliner. This is my favorite that I've used. It's super cheap. It's by e.l.f. It's called Expert Liquid Liner. It's super dark and it doesn't flake at all. And I only use the tiny brush tips. I never use felt tip. I hate felt tip. I think it's so annoying. But I'll just teach you how I do a really quick wing. So I always start at the end and I just do a little line there, and then I'll repeat it on the same side, on the other side. Like that. And that's gonna determine where the bottom of your wing is and how far it goes basically. And then I'll start here. Anytime you do a wing like this, you want it to be thinner in the inside and then get thicker as it goes out. You don't want the thickness to be the same all the way around. It just makes your eyes look bulky, and when you're opening your eyes, this part will look closer to the top if it's the same thickness as out here. So you kind of want it to like fade. But the thickness as you get out here is completely dependent on the look that you're going for. So I usually start by doing that, and then what I'll do is I'll go from the top of this point here to back towards the middle. So I'll show you. Sure that they look even. Let that dry. Okay, so now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to show you guys how you can use a lighter eyeshadow as a deeper highlight. So I'm gonna go back with this. And what I do is I just take my brush, use my angled brush to use that. So what I do with this is I just take my angled brush and I just tap it in some of these more reflective ones that are lighter than my skin. And then just put it right on top of that brow bone. See how that popped it? So then you kind of have a highlight here that goes around, you have a highlight under your brow, and you have a highlight right in the corner of your eye so that everything just kind of looks together. Make sure you don't hit the corner of your eyeliner while you're doing this so it doesn't like drag all over the place. Okay, so now all that's left to do is mascara and lips. I personally don't use false lashes, that's just a personal choice. So if you want to do that, that's completely up to you. So moving on to mascara, this is the mascara that I'm like totally obsessed with right now. It's by L'Oreal, and this is called Voluminous Million Lashes. I had their false fiber lashes before, and I really liked that one better, but this one works. So the other tip I would give for mascara is don't get a waterproof one. It's just not worth it, and it's so harsh on your lashes, and unless you have the proper method and products to remove that gently, it can really pull out your eyelashes, and it's just not worth it, you know? Just wash off your makeup if you're gonna go swimming, you know what I mean? So because this is a brand new tube, even though I do my bottom lashes, I start with my top ones because there's just too much on the wand right now. So I also have a kind of an interesting way of putting on my mascara. I actually hold the wand itself still and I blink my eyes onto it so that my lashes are basically coating themselves, as opposed to me going like this and moving the wand, because I feel like when you're moving the wand, that's when it's really easy to get the fallout up on your lid. If you are a female, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's pretty much good for my lashes. The last thing that I'm gonna do is my lips. My all-time favorite lip to do is actually a nude lip with two different shades mixed together. So the first one that I use as a base is, they're both by NYX or NYX. This one is Liquid Suede in Sandstorm, and then this one is NYX Lingerie in Cheekies. So what I do is I use this one as a base, and then I go in with this just in the middle in order to make it look like a more full and ombre look. So I'll show you guys how I do that now. So you don't want to let that dry too fast. This, sometimes I'll just leave it like this because I do like this color, but I wanted to show you guys how I do this. So this is a really light color. It's way too light to just use on its own. So what I do is I just dab it in the middle. Then I use my ring finger to blend. And see, that makes your lips look a lot fuller. And that is pretty much the finished look. So this is the finished look. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this makeup tutorial and you would like me to do more, definitely feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time on my channel. Bye!